Axolotls can regrow any limb cut off, part of their brain, part of their liver, whatever that has been cut off, in about 40 days. And they're named after an Aztec god. We'll talk more about that and other fun axolotl facts as we sketch little Maria here. So let's turn the page and get started. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on Friday morning. Cassandra, Rick, good morning. Mom and Dad, good morning. We've got people in the chat already. Good morning. Good morning. Rise and shine, you sleepyheads. Good morning. Good morning to you. So, axolotls, they're in the salamander family, but they left the salamander family 100, 200 million years ago, long time ago. And they diverged. They became what they are today. Their closest living relative today, the axolotl, the closest living relative today is a tiger salamander. And they're close enough to the tiger salamander that they're able to interbreed with them. So that's a weird thing because they are considered completely speciated, but they can be crossbred. Now, does that mean that if you put them in a tank together, they will interbreed, or does that mean that the scientists had to do some finagling to make it happen? I'm not really sure. Bless you. I'm not really sure which way that goes. Maybe the scientists did some finagling to make them interbreed. Maybe they were artificially inseminated. I'm not really sure. Kissing cousins. I've got some cute cousins. No. You're not supposed to go to the family reunion to look for dates.
I think your subtle hint is sideways.
You think my subtle hint is sideways, isn't it? I knocked it all over last night trying to get set up before bedtime. But yeah, kissing cousins is probably a good way to say that. So the thing that everybody knows about axolotls, or anybody who knows about axolotls, this is the thing they know about axolotls, is that they are perpetually juveniles. They're perpetually tadpoles. They don't have the thyroid stimulating hormone that causes them to be metamorphose into adults. And that means they always have their gills. And that's what those frilly things are on the side of their head, is gills. Now, a few weeks ago, we did a mud puppy. And a mud puppy has almost the exact same structures for almost the exact same reason. But the mud puppies and the axolotls actually deviated from each other about 100 million years ago, and then both of them developed this same characteristic on their own. Both of them is called neoteny. When they don't grow up, when they don't leave their juvenile state, and they still achieve sexual maturation without leaving their juvenile state, it's called neoteny. I hope that's how it's pronounced, because that's how I've been pronouncing it for a couple of years now. And the benefit is metamorphose takes a lot of energy. And where these guys live, the water is cold and murky and low in oxygen at times. And it's beneficial to them to not have to spend the energy to metamorphose into an adult. but especially having these large frilly gills with the water being cold and murky and low oxygen. These large frilly gills help them breathe, help them find oxygen where one would not expect there to be oxygen. And my hypothesis, and I'm not the only one that thinks this, I'm sure, but I came up with it before I was aware anybody else had. My hypothesis is that this was a reaction to the sediment from the asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs, because these things are in the fossil record at about 70 million years ago. 65 to 70 million years ago is when we see their rise in the fossil record. Same with the mud puppies. The exact same time the mud puppies start doing this exact same thing. When the water is covered in dust and sediment, and the sky is fogged over and the water's cold, this adaptation kept them alive. These guys are only in Mexico. Mud puppies are in the Great Lakes area. Now that is, I just take that with a grain of salt, because that's pure speculation on my part. That's not. There's no evidence either way on that one. So take that with a grain of salt, because it is purely speculative. But the tiger salamander also can reject adulthood and remain in the juvenile stage, just not indefinitely like these guys. The tiger salamander doesn't reach sexual maturity by doing so. In doing so, but these guys never become adults and yet still achieve sexual maturity. Good morning, Diablo Girl. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I like these animals. I have been fascinated by these animals for years. There's a pet trade of these animals. I'm not sure. I don't think they're wild caught. I think they breed well in captivity.
Yes.
So it's not, if you have a pet axolotl, they were likely bred in captivity. But they're not doing so hot in the wild. Are there any structures I'm missing?
Are they soft and squishy?
They look like they would be soft and squishy. I'm sure they're slimy. I've never touched one. I'm sure their texture is probably pretty slick. But they sure enough look like they'd be soft and squishy, don't they? There's a web comic called Strange Planet. Nathan, I can't think of Nathan's last name, but he's the one that has the alien creatures that are trying to live like Earthlings, and has all the It doesn't matter. Look it up. It's hilarious. I think it's a very cute webcomic. But he also does he does several other ideas beside his strange planet ideas. He did one about the axolotl, and I quote it quite frequently. It's a common joke in our household, and I've said it, I don't know, 5 or 6 times since I pulled this thing out of the box. The joke is it's 4 panels, and the top first panel is the little axolotls talking about how people have trouble saying her name, and she's from the lakes in Mexico, in the Highland Lakes in Mexico, and where the water is cold. But it's she's here to help you pronounce her name, and it's Maria, not axolotl. She's not trying. She's not. The joke, of course, is that you think she's trying to get you to learn how to pronounce axolotl. And I've quoted that. It's a running gag around the house.
The founder says these animals were added to the game Minecraft. You can only find them in deep, dark caves. She said they do have a layer of protective mucus on them. We like the comics, doesn't like the
It's not slime. Yeah, Nathan Powell, that's right. It's not slime, it's mucus.
Yeah, and then Diablo Girl says they have a delicate, smooth, and slightly slimy skin texture, described as soft or squishy velvet due to their protective slime coat.
I mean, we all need a protective slime coat, don't we?
She says not accidental ropes. Pamela says since they don't have the gene to evolve, having one as a pet would be kind of like having that team that lives in the basement won't grow up anyway.
Exactly. Axolotl Rose, the lead singer of Guns N' Roses. How would you change the name of Guns N' Roses to reflect that it's an axolotl? Now, it's interesting that they both came up with the same solution to the problem. The mud puppies and the axolotls, they both came up with the same solution: perpetual juvenile neoteny. But they did it in very different ways. The mud puppies, the mud puppies have the hormone to become adults, but certain parts of their body don't have the receptors. Have to have had the receptors turned off. And what?
I agree with Rick. They look like an eraser with ribs and legs.
Yes, a little pink eraser with ribs and legs is probably a pretty good description.
There's Adele.
Good morning, Adele. But the axolotl, we said the mud puppies have the thyroid hormone, but they just turn it off. They don't have the receptors, or the receptors are turned off in certain parts of the body. But the axolotls don't have the hormone. They turned off the ability to make the hormone. And so it's the same. It's functionally the same solution, but it's quite different in how it's done. So they're easily distinguished between each other based on that alone. Plus, these guys are multicolored, and the mud puppies are mostly just an ochre with spots.
So she's like because of errands and roadworks, but I can't wait to say that. It's cute.
Axolotl. There you go. Keep it up. You'll be saying specific before you know it.
Wanda says, I think scientists turn that receptor on by adding it to their DNA of what did grow into a salamander sort.
That's right. They can turn the receptor on. They can force feed the. It's not that they turn the receptor on. These guys have the receptor. They just don't have the hormone. So they can force the hormone into the axolotl, and they can force it to become a salamander. But when they do, they lose their regenerative abilities. These guys, if they lose a limb, they can grow it back. If they damage an eye or part of their brain, part of their head, their liver, they've done a lot of bad things to experiment with them. But if these guys lose part of their body, they can grow it back. In about 40 days, they can regrow an entire limb with the muscles and the bones and everything. In about 40 days, they can regrow the whole thing. But once they experimented with them, once they gave them the hormone to cause them to develop into adults, that ability goes away, and they don't live as long. The axolotls. You would think it'd be the scientists for being mean to them, but no. It's the axolotls. The axolotls don't live as long if you give them the hormone that makes them become adults, that causes them that causes them to come out of juvenile state. They have the receptors. They will grow, but they don't make the hormone. But you can give them the hormone and they will grow. All of the captive bred axolotls came from about 34 specimens that were captured in 1863. And in order to reintroduce diversity into the gene pool, the zoos and stuff have interbred them. I alluded to this earlier. Have interbred them with tiger salamanders, and so the captive bred ones are not strictly axolotls. And they've tried to, in areas where the population has declined, they've tried to reintroduce them from captive breeding. But you have that issue because they're not, if they brought them from the captive bred stock, or if they captured live wild ones and bred them in captivity, you have that issue of what are you reintroducing back to the community. Let me dry this real quick. We'll talk more about that on the other side. Also, that being said, the mud puppies, if you give them the hormone, they don't develop. It doesn't matter because they don't have the receptors. They have the hormone, but they don't have the receptors. These guys completely gave up the hormone. Dun, dun, dun. Let's start with a little vermilion. I'm going to water it down, give it a pinkish tint. We'll come back with scarlet to highlight some of the areas.
This is so fascinating to know, but poor little critters in the lab.
Yeah. Yeah, poor little critters in the lab. They're named after. So I know I'm gonna mess this up. The Nahuatl language is the language of the Aztecs, and in their tradition, they have a god called Xolotl, 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 and they added the AT part of the name, which means water. And in their tradition, the ancient gods were being sacrificed to create the sun, and by the modern gods, and Xolotl didn't want to be sacrificed, and so he transformed himself. First, he transformed himself into 2 stalks of maize, and then he transformed himself into a maguey plant, which I have no idea what that is. And then,
says, how do they breed if they do not become adults?
that is one of the features of their neoteny. They can achieve sexual maturity without leaving their larval stage. That is one of the features. That is what makes neoteny interesting. What makes neoteny more than just staying in the juvenile state. They have to be able to stay in the juvenile state and reach sexual maturity.
Emma says vermilion. And she says, no scarlet. Frankly, I don't give a damn.
We did the vermilion first. We did the vermilion first. I'm going to hit that fin with just a little ochre. I'm going to thin that out really thin. I don't want it to appear yellow, but I am going to hit it with just a little ochre, just to differentiate it. I may actually come back and hit the whole thing with some ochre. I like that. I think that was a smart move. Thank you for suggesting it. Okay. But he turned himself into the Xolotl turned himself into 2 stalks of maize. Then he turned himself into a maguey plant, and then he turned himself into this salamander to stay, because it wasn't named yet. He turned themselves into a salamander to hide under the water. He was eventually found and still killed and sacrificed to the sun, but they named this salamander after him because of that story. So the part at the beginning is referring to the water, and the Xolotl part is referring to the god Xolotl. They've had a lot of depletion. They've had a major die-off since the 90s. They estimate somewhere around 95 to 99% of the existing species in the wild are depleted. And their problem is things like invasive species of tilapia and carp. They eat their eggs with their voracious appetites. They have a problem with sewage and pollution runoff from the urban sprawl that is springing up around them. And so habitat loss, invasive species, and human intervention are their major obstacles right now. And as I alluded to a minute ago, they are trying to rehabilitate them by growing populations in captivity and then releasing them in the wild. And they do well when they do that, except that the ones that they release into the wild end up susceptible to hawks, birds, because you're only releasing a set number of individuals instead of releasing thousands and thousands of eggs that could develop into individuals, and then the ones that are able to evade the predators being the ones that grow up to produce the next generation. You're only releasing, a couple of dozen adult, grown up. I don't know how you refer to something that's perpetual youth, because it's not an adult, but in its final form, you're releasing those into the wild, and they've not had any competition, and they've not had to deal with predation, and so they end up predated. I got Pamela in the chat quoting Gone with the Wind. And the funny thing about that is, I've seen Gone with the Wind. Every time it came on television, my mother made me watch it. And that is the only scene I remember. I couldn't tell you anything else about the movie. And as an adult, I have no interest. It's probably a fantastic movie, but as an adult, I have no interest in watching it because I was forced to as a child.
Yeah, I was having chicken curry soup with shrimp today for lunch.
That sounds fantastic.
Cassandra says, luckily we don't do human sacrifice anymore.
But
I don't know. There's a couple of humans I would like to offer up.
And the way the world is going these last few years, I wonder if maybe it might be time to revert to that.
Cassandra's never seen Gone with the Wind.
They probably, Cassandra, you're in Australia, right? Is Cassandra's in Australia? So,
that's probably.
So it's possible. For one, U.S. Civil War history probably has no bearing on Australian interests. And for two, one of the broadcasting networks bought the rights to it, and it just became an annual tradition. What was the tradition? What was the occasion every year that would make them want to show that? Because it was like every year, oh, it's time for Gone with the Wind. Oh, it's time for The Wizard of Oz. Oh, it's time for Heidi.
And that may have originated in the lab, because the big thing was when they burned them at Lake, Georgia.
I have no idea. That was
a big part of the movie.
I have a whole mental block about Gone with the Wind. And Roots for the same reason. But they didn't show and Roots. But they didn't show Roots over and over like they'd Gone with the Wind. All right. What is today? So today is the 24th. Yeah, Cassandra's in Australia. I'm really impressed with your English speaking abilities for being a foreigner. Today is the 24th of April.
I don't know that it's classified. She said she loves watching any Western that comes on TV. I didn't know it's classified as a Western.
No, it's not a Western. It's Civil War era. Westerns are set in the West. She laughed at the language joke. You know, Bill and Jennifer, Bill Flowers and his lovely wife Jennifer will come visit us, and that's a running joke between us because they are also Australian. I have a Canadian friend that I say the same joke to. My goodness, you speak English so well for a foreigner. I'm so proud of you. I'm so impressed with your ability to speak English. Put that highlight back. Put one on the knee. And that's probably good. There we go. It would have been better to preserve that, but it works out just as well to scrape it off at the end. Okay, so that is my version of it compared to the photograph. Yeah, to be fair, some Australian accents don't sound like English. Adele, that's mean. All right. Yeah, it's not, but they're not like, it's not like they're Scottish or anything. Goodness. All right, so that's my version of it compared to the photograph. Let's see what it looks like from my perspective. From my perspective, there it is from my perspective. So that's what I did today. Tomorrow, what do we have tomorrow? Tomorrow's Saturday. Oh my goodness. Say it's the same on Southerners, Adele. Yeah, we've got people in Louisiana I can't understand. All right, so let's see here. What do we have to first off? Let's see what's in the egg for tomorrow. Oh, it's the suspense. I know you're all down for the suspense. It is. This is an African lion. Is exactly what this is. We can talk about the theme song to The Lion King. That if you translate into English, it says, "Here comes a lion, a lion. It's a lion, it's a lion, it's a lion, it's a lion." We can talk about how they have a roar that can be heard for miles away because it's the loudest roar of any of the big cats. We can talk about the females doing most of the hunting and the males being just as adept at hunting but choosing not to. We can talk about all those things tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. Texas time when we draw this little kitty. We do this every day at 5:30 a.m. Texas time, so you may want to set that notification bell so you don't miss that one. Adele said the same thing. Kitty. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I do appreciate it. I look forward to it every day. We have Rick and Pamela and Cassandra, Diablo Girl, Adele. Thank you guys so much for joining me, Mom and Dad. Obviously, thank you so much for joining me. I do look forward to this every day. We had a good time last night. We did Angelfish last night on the Thursday night streams, and we had some technical difficulties with the What's on Your Easel, but we will get that worked out. But we did an Angelfish last night on the stream. So if you missed that, that's on the recording. You can watch that. We do that every Thursday night. But we do this every morning, 5:30 a.m. Texas time. So be sure and tune in tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We dance until somebody says they see me dancing, because when they see me dancing, I will know that the lag is caught up with the stream, and I will know that I won't get cut off mid-sentence. you guys have a chance to say hello and goodbye to each other and ask questions of each other and follow each other to the next stream if you continue to watch YouTube for a while. It gives you a chance to click clicky thingies. This way if you're on the horizontal, this way if you're on the vertical, so that you can see another fantastic video just like this. But again, the most important part about this is that I don't get cut off mid-sentence, because nobody